Boston has unveiled an amazing statue in the honor of Martin Luther King, and I don't think this is going to age well. I mean, it immediately didn't age well, but then it started getting like a very negative reaction. But the thing is, it looks like in the next coming few years, we may get some revelations about Martin Luther King that actually aren't very feminist, should we say?
I was expecting him to like secretly be a Klan member. I mean, that would be funny.
That would probably be less damaging than what we think might be coming out, actually. One socialist historian has apparently seen the FBI records of the bugging that took place, and he's like, ooh, in the era of Me Too, this looks kind of bad. And so, yeah, it's nice. But anyway, before we begin, go check out my premium podcast on critical race theory. Just a broad overview of the origin and purpose, because it is actually relevant that the critical race theorists actually oppose the popular conception of Martin Luther King's view on civil rights, the liberal view on human rights, civil rights, which is maybe everyone should be treated fairly well, you know?
Yeah, it's nothing to do with him being anti-feminist.
No, that's just how he's based. No, I'm joking, because we're going to get into it. It's
but like their view on it is just, what if we did racism the right way?
Yeah. Martin Luther King's dictum of being treated by the content of your character and not the colour of your skin is obviously not what they want, and then we'll start looking at the content of some people's character. But anyway, let's begin first with the history of terrible statues. This was your favourite, wasn't it?
The comb.
Can we scroll down and see that picture, please, John? Just
people listening, it's a black person comb. I don't even know. Like, I've never seen those combs in England. I've only ever seen them in like American TV shows with a black one.
No, they're just common for women. Yeah, they're just combs.
Just never seen that style. Anyway, and it's also got a big BLM fist at the top of it, because, as I said, it's a black person comb.
Yeah, but I mean, at least this isn't like. At least it's obvious what this is, and it's not in some way intrinsically offensive to the eye. It's just kind of silly.
Well, it's also just like, look at the classical architecture behind that's beautiful, and then you've got this piece of...
Oh, well, it gets worse. Let's watch the unveiling of the new statue in Boston. You can feel the energy level just go down. 3, 2, 1. Whoa.
What is this?
Yeah. What is this indeed? If we go to the image, this is what it's meant to be. An image of Martin Luther King. It's called The Embrace, and it's Martin Luther King embracing his wife.
Why don't they do their heads?
That's a great question. There are so many great questions about this.
It would have looked human with the heads. It just looks like some kind of, I don't know.
Demented? It looks like some sort of monstrosity that AI would create.
Hand fetish?
No. This looks like the weird like AI representations of humans, where it's just, a disembodied human part. But yeah, no, it's meant to represent the embrace that they had when MLK was given the Nobel Peace Prize in, I think it was 1964. It cost $10 million.
Hang on, you mean he charged $10 million?
Apparently,
not that it cost $10 million.
Yeah. And if you scroll down a little bit on this, John, you can see that from like certain angles, like that bottom left one.
It looks like he's holding a massive...
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was the internet's impression as well.
So they paid $10 million for an actual piece of... Yeah, all right.
In honor of Martin Luther King.
Oh, God.
Which is... So, naturally, I actually can't go through the memes because of YouTube's prohibition on pornographic and scatological material.
I'm in support of those, actually.
Yeah, me too. I'm not saying YouTube's wrong in this case. But this was quite the bombshell on social media. Highly amusing, frankly. But for anyone wondering, right, so let's talk about... The statue itself is not really terribly important. It's really what it's supposed to represent. Because what is it supposed to represent? Why are we doing this?
Martin Luther King loved his wife.
Did he?
But even what would be the point? Why would you spend 10 million of taxpayers' money to show that?
Well, just before we go on, right? So, for anyone who doesn't know, Martin Luther King between 1957 and 1968 did a lot of stuff. He was a very busy man, right? He led a massive protest in Birmingham, Alabama. He wrote his Letters from a Birmingham Jail, a manifesto for the Negro Revolution. He planned drives to get Negroes as voters. I didn't write this, by the way. This is from NobelPrize.org. Don't know why they keep using the word Negro.
I think it was the word at the time, so...
Yeah, well, this wasn't written in 1964. This is a website. So I don't know why they're still using that word. But anyway, he directed the peaceful march on Washington of 250,000 people, to whom he delivered the I Have a Dream address. He conferred with various presidents. He was arrested 20 times, if not more, and assaulted at least 4 times, received 5 honorary degrees.
Criminal.
Was named
That's a joke.
Was named Man of the Year by Time magazine in 1963, and of course was assassinated. I think it was in 1969. He was assassinated. They do tell us on here somewhere. 68, sorry, while giving a speech. And at the age of 35, he was the youngest man to have received the Nobel Peace Prize. So he was very busy, got a lot done, and he also gave the money from the Peace Prize over to the Civil Rights Movement. So that's all very upstanding and noble. And this is presumably what they are trying to honour, because there's been a lot of questions raised, and we see this a lot in the iconoclastic statue movement, anti-statue movement, shall we say. Well, Cecil Rhodes was an imperialist. We have to tear down a statue. Mm-hmm.
Well, the worst, that was actually way worse. I don't know if you heard the details of the Down with Rhodes campaign.
Well, not on hand, because I wasn't going to cover it. But.
Yeah, but their leaflets, there were several quotes from Rhodes in order, as in things he'd said. It turns out none of them were from Rhodes, and even then, none of them were from a particular speech of anyone. They were random quotes put together, talking about
But don't they sound bad, Callum?
Yeah, they did sound bad.
Don't they make Cecil Rhodes sound just... I mean, don't get me wrong, Cecil Rhodes probably wasn't a good guy either.
He was.
I actually don't know that much about him. I'm reading Oswald Spengler's Decline of the West at the moment, and he loves Cecil Rhodes.
Well, he literally set up a scholarship to take people from, what was it, South Africa, to get them educated.
Right, okay.
If you're thinking of the time, sure, he was an imperialist, but he wasn't. It's like saying we all like, I don't know, water. Anyway.
But the question really is, how much did Martin Luther King win? Did he win? Did his vision win? Well, I mean, we can go to Chicago and just look at this weekend's shooting statistics.
Is it not like Tulsa, the Wall Street of...
No, it's not. It's pretty terrible. 18 people were shot and 3 killed in Chicago this weekend. 18 people shot in just 2 days. Isn't that madness? That's madness.
Is it?
I think it's madness.
For Chicago?
For anywhere. Nowhere should be like Chicago.
I think Zimbabwe's actually safer.
But what I'm contrasting here is the idealist view of MLK compared to the reality of what has happened since, and the sort of condition that a lot of people are apparently living in. Right, so let's have a look at what the artist says about the sculpture. Right, so this was a sculpture by conceptual artist Hank Willis Thomas, and he had no idea he would get it because he was competing with 125 other artists to design a monument dedicated to the civil rights icons, but he got it. So good for him. You know, it's not anything wrong that he's done. So let's watch this first clip from this interview with him.
Of all of the images that you could have selected, you chose this one.
When they met here, they were people full of dreams, full of ambition, and full of hope. And they chose to actually commit those dreams to one another and to society. And that day was like proof that they'd done what it was all worth it.
That's right. The start of the dream is a love story in Boston. King and Scott were students and met on a blind date in 1951. They soon became inseparable and started their journey together toward a cause larger than themselves. For the sculpture, artist Hank Willis Thomas stripped away everything but the embrace.
Not everyone has arms and hands, right? But all of us have been embraced, right? All of us know what it's like to feel embraced.
Does he not know what an incel is?
Oh, yeah, there's that too.
You know, I mean, I suppose not all of us have arms and hands. But
what's that about?
Yeah, I know. This is a weird framing, isn't it?
Well, I'm not very intersectional, I know. I didn't include disabled, trans, paraplegics in my model of MLK.
Stripping away everything but the embrace. He's saying, look...
But like every MLK has arms and hands.
Well, yeah.
Every MLK's wife had arms and hands.
So you are right,
whatever.
but he's trying to turn this into an idealistic statement, a symbolic statement. This look, we can all feel the relief of the black community symbolized in Martin Luther King and his wife having this hug when he gets given the Nobel Peace Prize. So, okay, and it's all built on love, the love that Martin Luther King had for his wife.
You want to know his net worth?
Who, the artists or
Yeah.
MLKs?
Officially, the artist is worth $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
I think that might have gone up recently. It's an old calculation. Anyway, I just
Well,
wondered
it's
why
fine.
can you
A
do the
million
heads?
really isn't that much these days, to be honest.
I know, but it's not that, is it?
No.
You charge $10 million for a statue.
Yeah, but I mean, making a giant bronze cast of Martin Luther King's arms probably costs a lot of money. But anyway, let's see how meaningful all of this is.
The sculpture sits on a plaza made up of diamond-shaped pieces of granite designed to honor the African-American quilt-making tradition. All around, plaques featuring the names of local Boston civil rights heroes. When you saw it for the first time, fully installed here, what was your reaction?
Oh, I cried like a baby. I cried like a baby.
It's very meaningful. And I'm not saying it's not meaningful to the black community in America. I'm really not. I mean...
Come on. The thing it represents is meaningful, but the thing itself is not meaningful. Look at it.
Maybe.
Like, if you made a statue, I don't know, of the Norman conquest or whatever, like big historical event in England, like put up a statue of Queen Victoria and make it look like she's squatting over a toilet. I'm not. It's just
make it look like she's holding. Yeah, there is a good question that's raised by Rasheed Walters, who is a Boston Herald columnist. So he's a local newspaper columnist. Who's like, look, I happen to agree with all of the people on the internet saying this is actually awful. Given that I am not white, I am safe from any charges of racism for saying the MLK's embrace statue is aesthetically unpleasant. Yeah, because the only reason a white person would be like, oh, that doesn't look good, is because they're racists. The famous photo should have been the full statue of the couple in their embrace. What a huge swing and a miss honouring Dr. and Mrs. King. Sad.
Have you seen the statues that African dictators make?
Yeah, they're amazing.
Brilliant. Mostly made in North Korea, I will admit, but full body, look amazing. Some of them
Heroic
are ripped
looking.
as hell.
Yeah.
Like, they're not man holding turd.
It's actually woman holding turd.
Oh, God. Is that better or worse?
It's more accurate to life.
Oh.
Because Martin Luther King was nothing but a family man, apparently. Let's listen.
Sometimes we are afraid to embrace, but for Dad and Mom to show us what embracing is, to have a manifestation of what they consistently did, it's that it really is about the manifestation of love. And Dad had obviously a love for his wife and family, but he had a love for humanity, and so did Mom.
So that's his son. And
are we getting to he loved all women, including his wife territory?
maybe, because the thing is, a lot of people are aware that the FBI discovered that Martin Luther King was having dozens of affairs. But actually, apparently the content of those affairs is really questionable. And if the famous dictum is, well, let's judge people by the content of the character, it's like, oh. I don't, there's a part of me that doesn't want to go through it, because this is a sacred cow that is going to be difficult to accept for a lot of people, especially on the left. And
Well, it's what Martin Luther would have wanted.
and this is the same. It's exactly the same when they say, well, look, Francis Drake began, slavery in the New World or something, and therefore we have to take. Okay, I'm not saying he did, but that's what they say, right?
He ran out of money and went on one journey.
Sure, but he was involved in one slave trading operation.
He had one slave, please.
Yeah. But the point is, they'll say, well, look, that's proof of his bad character, and so take down and say, okay, if that's the standard, all we need to do is be consistent here, right? So we're not allowed any of our heroes, because all of our heroes are evil. Doesn't matter that he, defeated the Spanish Armada, prevented a Spanish puppet from being put on the throne of England. That doesn't matter. That's not important. Why would that be important to Englishmen, right? And so if that's the standard, is Martin Luther King being present at a rape relevant?
Hang on, what?
Yeah.
I think it was going to be that bad.
It's really bad, right? So there's a chap called David Garrow. He's an American historian, won a Pulitzer Prize in 1987 for his biography of King that was published the previous year. And he wrote an article in 2019 for the magazine Standpoint, in which he wrote that he had seen an FBI file with a handwritten note on it claiming King had witnessed and failed to prevent and encourage sexual assault by another minister, and that Garrow found the claim credible. And you might, who's this Klan member? Well, he was a member of the Democratic Socialists of America.
Okay, that does make him less trustworthy.
Sure, but it means he's less likely to want to overthrow the memory and legacy of Martin Luther King. As in, he's a lefty historian. He's not like some, Nazi historian or something.
Is he a critical race theorist?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
He seems to be a fairly traditional lefty. But anyway, The Times published this article. I thought we'd go through it because it's just like, I kind of hope that he's just making all of this up.
40 women?
Yeah.
How did he find the time?
Great question. But, I mean, he's travelling all across the country. So apparently he's just got all of these women in tow.
I suppose he's a rock star of the era.
Well, yeah, he was handsome, charismatic, beloved by millions. Of course women were interested in him, right? But I'm going to read some of it out, and it's not pleasant, actually. So the FBI had been planting miniature transmitters in a bunch of the rooms, right, that he'd been in. And so they had loads and loads of compromat on him, should we call it. Apparently, he sounded a lot like Donald Trump. And Trump was like, we're going to grab him by the pussy.
Yeah.
Here's a quote. King joked with his friends that he had, quote, started the International Association for the Advancement of Pussy Eaters.
Oh, that's just funny.
I know. That's exactly right. Fair enough. He's
there with all his guys like, we're the Pussy Patrol.
Fair enough, right?
Okay.
But in another instant, he's said to have been recorded by the FBI agents that Garrow himself has seen. Again, Garrow has written biographies of Martin Luther King previous to this. King is alleged to have looked on and laughed and offered advice while a friend who is also a Baptist minister raped a woman he described as one of his parishioners.
And that's messed up.
Yes. No one in the Me Too camp. This has been out for 3 years, this article. No one in Me Too is just like, I didn't hear that. Details of the assault are believed to have been captured on tapes that are currently being held in the vault under court seal in the US National Archives. The incident is described in FBI summaries unearthed by Garrow, an American historian who won the prize the previous year.
Why is it under court control?
I don't know. And I imagine for lots of reasons.
But the thing is, like, if you have something... So the FBI and CIA obviously have to have stuff released at a certain date so it doesn't compromise anything they're doing, right? Mm-hmm. But if it's got nothing to do with anything political...
this is all very political.
No, I mean in the sense of, like, actual operations you're doing, then usually it gets released pretty quickly.
No. Sometimes, what was the JFK ones? Like 50 years later or whatever.
Yeah, that's because it proved that, they...
Yeah.
No, it's just...
Well, no, it probably did, actually.
But the point being, there's actually something there. But if it's just, this is what he did, it has nothing to do with our operations, then why they keep
this is what they learned from their operations, right? And you've got to remember that the superstructure of American civil rights is based on the decency of Martin Luther King. I mean, it's literally, let's judge a man by the content of his character. So...
Rape assistant.
Well, yeah, right. And so King was accompanied by a friend, Logan Kearse, a pastor of Baltimore's Cornerstone Baptist Church, who arrived in Washington with what an FBI summary describes as several women parishioners of the church. Kearse invited King to meet the women in his room, where they discussed which women among the parishioners would be suitable for natural and unnatural sexual acts. The FBI document adds, when one of the women protested that she did not approve, the Baptist minister immediately and forcibly raped her as King watched. At the same hotel the following evening, King and a dozen individuals participated in a sex orgy, including with what one FBI official described as acts of degeneracy and depravity. When one of the women shied away from engaging in an unnatural act, King and several of the men discussed how she should be taught how she was to be taught and initiated in this respect. King told her that to perform such an act would help your soul.
Anal rape. That's what we're talking about.
I don't know.
Unnatural act, usually that means that.
That's,
right?
Yes. At one point, the FBI official sent him an incriminating tape with anonymous letters, King, because, of course, they were they hated him and they were trying to stop him. So it's not like the people who were doing this to King were nice or decent people either, right? But they were like, you're an evil, abnormal beast. Your adulterous acts and your sexual orgies were on record for all time.
Well, they were, if the FBI had been believed about this.
Yeah, Garrow said that he had no idea of the scale or the ugliness of King's philandering until he saw the FBI files. I always thought there were 10 to 12 other women, not 40 to 45. He now believes that the Me Too age of revulsion for sexual harassment and assault, evidence of King's indifference to rape poses so fundamental a challenge to the historical stature as to require a complete and extensive historical review.
I'm not letting him get away with that. Now that Me Too's come about, rape is now seen as bad. It's like, no, it was always seen as bad. Like, even whatever those FBI agents, I don't know what their backgrounds are, but them writing to him shows that it's always been bad.
One white prostitute told the FBI she'd been drawn into a threesome with King and a black woman. Visiting Las Vegas in April 1964, King allegedly took the two women to his room at the Sands Hotel, then phoned one of his associates and told him to get your damned ass down here because I have a beautiful white broad here. The trio then had sex, and the prostitute afterwards said she was getting scared as they were pretty drunk and using filthy language. She told an FBI interviewer that, quote, "It was the worst orgy I've ever gone through." I mean, that's just funny, to be honest. But
That's all consensual, though, isn't it?
I assume so, but like...
But also, he's using foul language. I'm leaving this orgy.
This is the worst orgy I've ever been to. That's a funny statement. I'm sure it wasn't
the
fun.
60s are another time.
I know. It's crazy. Obviously, this put severe marital strain on
Used to the King's English in my orgies.
on his marriage with Coretta. She said to have complained that her husband was not fulfilling his marital responsibilities. If he spent 10 hours a month at home, it would be an exaggeration. King apparently retorted that she should go out and have some sexual affairs of her own.
Yikes.
Yeah. Naturally...
Was he a minister or something?
Yeah, he was.
Reverend.
Yeah.
Man of Christ.
Yeah.
Just commit a sin.
Yeah. They say that King's most loyal supporters have often dismissed criticism of his private behaviour as racially motivated attempts to denigrate his reputation and damage his legacy. You're racist for bringing this up. She was a racist for saying it was the worst orgy she'd ever attended.
I'll have you know all my orgies are fantastic. Defends Martin Luther King to allegations like Berlusconi.
Yet the evidence appears inescapable. Significant volumes of documents have already been made available under subsequent court rulings affecting disclosure of government files. The most damning tapes may finally appear in 2027.
Why that late?
I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I mean. Like, there's no compromise on like an FBI operation, presumably.
Yeah.
I mean, except maybe if the FBI wrote to him, then yeah, okay, that's an argument.
I mean, I don't know. They don't tell us. But the point is,
It's all just
in 2027, we're going to find out from Martin Luther King's own words what he was up to. And this socialist historian is like, yeah, it's not looking good, guys.
That's a year before an election.
Oh, yeah.
So the Trump election's 24, and then whatever happens after that will be...
Presumably the DeSantis election.
So a year before DeSantis' election, we're going to find out that MLK was an anal rapist.
A lot of women will see this as one of the more historical instances of maltreatment of black women, not only by black ministers. The FBI agents didn't give a hoot either. Like I said, the FBI agents aren't good guys.
Well, the FBI. Like,
Yeah, exactly, obviously.
well, you...
But the FBI did send all of this to the press. You remember it was Times Man of the Year?
Hang on, they got sent these tapes, and they were just like, ignore that.
Unlike today, says Sky, Pollard says everything was scandalous when everything is scandalous and tortured. It was a time when more risque stories were seen as a liability rather than a scoop. Pollard explains, we have to remember that back in the 60s, the American press didn't dig into people's personal lives the way we do today. It wasn't part of their agenda. That's right. That's like the press back then, you see. They were much better. Much more saintly. Of course they weren't. Of course they weren't. They were just using him as a political prop to advance an agenda they supported. I mean, the FBI send them tapes saying, look, this is Martin Luther King watching a woman get raped. And they're like, yeah, I didn't see that.
Was it Time Magazine who got these tapes?
No. It was, in fact, they don't actually tell us in this article which ones they sent them to. But it's a general theme of the media that they've always been on the side. And that's fine. You know, I mean, like, again, politically, I agree with the statement. We should judge people by the content of the character, not the colour of their skin.
But also politically, I stand against rape.
Yes.
Which Mr. King was not so much on the side of.
I also don't think you should have 40 mistresses.
Not a
and
good
tell
idea.
your wife to just piss off and have an affair. Especially if you're a Christian minister.
Oh, God.
Like, I mean, I don't know.
Could you imagine if he wasn't assassinated, like, and he lived on and all this came out? Because that's usually what happens if someone lives long enough.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the Martin Luther King statue. Looking forward to 2027.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the Contemplation series, this one on the best innovations of 2022. If you'd like to find out what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.